All right, welcome to another special episode of the Not Canceled But Canceled Independent Characters. I am joined by Kat.
Hi, guys.
And Caleb of CK Studios.
How you guys doing?
How are you guys doing is the real question.
Oh, we're doing awesome. The weather here is so nice.
It's super nice. That's why I bought a convertible. This is the time of year that the convertible... Actually, you know what's funny is, man, talk about a complaint about something that you shouldn't complain about. Sometimes it gets too hot for a convertible. Uh-huh. And then you're driving and you're just like, man, I'm just baking the sun. That's when I crank up the AC with the convertible.
With the convertible open. Uh-huh.
First world problems.
California
it's too
living.
Hot for the convertible.
Right? You and I, Caleb, were just talking about... you were talking about potentially doing some videos and stuff for my Patreon. And you and I had been talking a couple weeks before I made the announcement that I was canceling the show. And you're like, oh, we want to do help you get some content and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, it sounds pretty good. And what was the next statement on your text?
So, yeah, we're talking and it's like, hey, what do you think of a series of tutorials on painting? And you're like, absolutely, happy to do so. Let's talk. And then the very next series of the conversations is, you shutting down the IC? And then, of course, we go into our conversation about it. But
I think you were messaging me going, oh, my God, you're not going to believe what happened. Carl's,
Again.
I thought I was getting punked because I haven't been online in like a year. I haven't been online. And I thought you were punking me. It was like trying to get me to get back online and check. No, you were real. Carl's really shutting this down. Oh.
Just been super busy. I mean, I went into it. There's a whole post about it.
Well, and there is a new Warbringer out, so it's ouch.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. But I recorded with Colin the other day just because he's helping out with the Tablewar Charities Autism fundraiser that we're doing, and I was like, oh, we could just have a quick half-hour conversation. Of course, it's fun. Like, I'm not saying podcasting is not fun. I always said I would, if it wasn't fun anymore, I'd quit. And yes, that is true. But it's also real life gets in the way, and the pandemic, and all that stuff. And you guys are also involved in the Tablewar Chair. Well, Mr. Caleb here is also involved in the
we both are, because we have the personal coaching, I guess. Oh,
I thought that was just you. Is that you?
Yeah, that's Kat? Just me.
Oh, okay.
But then also there's a CK Studio class.
Oh,
and it's any of our classes. So you UK listeners.
So if it's in your area, you can.
Or you want to fly to it.
Or if you want to fly to it or whatever. I mean, we're not going to pay for the airfare and stuff like that.
Oh, well, then never mind. I was going to get my phone to bed. Oh, never mind.
I was saying, value-wise, if you're a UK listener, that's quite a value, because our UK classes are quite a bit more expensive than US classes, because there's so much overhead, us flying over there and everything. So if you guys are thinking about this, you UK guys,
charity,
get in there and get your tickets. It's a great value.
Yeah.
So, well, that's interesting that you say that, because, and we'll talk a little bit about impact of COVID on hobby and that, but it's impacted you guys directly, because your business was getting a group of people together
and traveling.
And traveling and bringing airbrush techniques and other techniques to classes. I mean, this pretty much shut you guys down for a while.
Mm-hmm. And it was bringing it to the community.
Yeah.
And it was bringing the community together.
Yeah.
Which was what drove us for this for the most part. We got to meet all the different pockets of community around the world.
Yeah.
All of it just stopped. Just stopped.
Ours did. I mean, we started gaming again because a bunch of us now vaccinated, and man, I mean, having you guys here in the studio, right?
Exciting.
It's nice. Yeah.
Exciting. And we don't have masks on?
No.
We have one more person in here. We'd probably have to mask on, though. Right?
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
Shh.
I'm not. Look, hey, you do you.
Right? I think we're all vaccinated.
Yep. Yeah, but it's nice. I mean, like Martin came over yesterday. We did a bunch of board gaming yesterday. You guys played a couple games with us, but Martin came over yesterday. The first thing he did was hug me because he was just like, "Oh my God, I need human contact."
That's what I did with Shell.
Yeah.
I'm like, I haven't been around another non-related human other than Caleb. Oh my God, I just want to hug you for 3 hours. We just have human contact.
It's pretty funny. Even the introverts are like, "Yeah, I could use somebody to talk to."
Exactly. Oh, I embraced my introverts so much for the last year. I'm at that point where it's become, instead of an inconvenience, it's become a lifestyle now. And we're kind of, I know a lot of people that are edging that way that are like, this is a lifestyle now. I'm not so sure I want to go back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's changed. It's changed a lot of people.
Exactly. And so as we start talking about kicking up CK Studios again, when we first started talking, I'm an introvert. Like, I fully realized this last year. When we started talking about getting CK Studios going again, I had a hiccup of anxiety.
Oh, really?
Whoa. Are we talking about going out? We're talking about being around. We're doing this in a place with people. Wait a second. Okay, step back. Give me about 5 days, and I'll come back to you on this. I'll get my head wrapped around it again. Then I just got excited.
Yeah. It's the first time I was around people is, I think everybody's going to face that. It's a little bit awkward initially, and you're like, oh. But then yesterday, I mean, it just by the time we were into it, I wasn't thinking about it anymore. We were just doing our thing. So Well, yeah. So you actually for the longest time had and I don't know, I haven't looked today, but you had the highest bid for the coaching of the painter.
Did
stuff. Oh yeah.
Tablewar?
Oh man.
Justin was nipping at your heels. I was kind of surprised that Justin was nipping at your heels, but you were ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Justin would be the funner one. I'm a little boring. if I don't have Kat next to me in a class, it's just like,
You say that, but you're also like the drill sergeant of painting. Like, this is what you're gonna do. This is how you're gonna do it.
Yeah, this is gonna be interesting. I've been.
What is that? A terribly painted space wolf?
Oh, I'm sorry, Adon. He knows that is not what I meant.
That's what I said. Let's go to the record, Kat. What does it say?
Exactly.
Oh, poor guy.
Yes, that was your outside voice. Oops.
No, I'm looking forward to this because we get asked a lot for online stuff, and I've always been very resistant to online.
You talked about doing it for a while and kind of backed away from it.
Yeah, and COVID's kind of forced you into looking at doing more online stuff if you want to continue to teach and to do some of the stuff. And when COVID hit, we pretty much shut down, and I looked at a lot of different options of doing some online class stuff like that, and we're slowly kind of rolling out some ideas. Nothing's to full fruition right now.
Yeah.
So this is going to kind of be one of those first kind of ventures into the online side of it about coaching with somebody, unless a local wins it. And then I'm going to let them, or someone that wants to travel the store, I'll absolutely let them. We could do our coaching at the Game Castle in Reno. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Right.
I don't know. We'd have to discuss it. It'd have to be make sure they're vaccinated, stuff like that. And just make sure everybody's safe. But anyways, it's going to be very interesting doing this online coaching, and I'm kind of hoping this works out and it catapults me into doing a little bit more.
Interesting.
Because I wouldn't mind opening up that side of it a little bit.
Yeah.
I enjoy teaching so much, and this last year showed me how much I enjoy it because I just missed the teaching. I missed the conventions and stuff too.
Yeah.
The gaming, it didn't really matter too much. That was kind of
You've always fallen more on the art side of that.
Well, originally I got into this hobby for the gaming.
Right.
And I was a tournament player, all that stuff. And it kind of fell off, but I was still gaming a bit.
Yeah.
And now, I didn't miss the not gaming so much, but it was the teaching and the hanging out with people and painting. And I really even didn't get much painting. I know. I
was going to ask, have you done much painting in the time that this has all been down?
No. I think I ran the same thing like you were talking with Colin about.
Turns out that wasn't the problem.
Right. I was like,
the narrator. Turned out he didn't do a lot of painting.
Yeah. When I got sent home, how long was I home for? About 2 months?
2.5 months.
And I sure got a lot of housework done. I mean, we painted the outside of the house. We retiled stuff. We did I think I got 3 Primaris Marines painted in that entire period. I have painted more in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last like 8 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because, I don't know. I just, it wasn't there. I just wasn't really feeling it. I think I kind of needed that break. I wonder
what it is that affected you in the same way that, you know, like I wonder what it is that caused that, because now I'll be honest, I look at, as I feel we're kind of getting to, obviously globally, we're not getting to the end of COVID. I mean, if you look at the situation India is in, Argentina, that kind of thing, but as we're in the U.S., as we're starting to kind of open up and get back to at least some semblance of what normal used to look like.
The new normal. Yeah.
I wonder, I look back on this time and I go, oh man, I could have got so much done and I didn't. Instead, I binge watched The Boys and, you know, whatever. I feel like such a slug, and I wonder what it is that caused that. I mean, I have to imagine it's somehow related to socialization with other folks in doing that thing together. You know,
I think you
inspire each other.
Yeah, I think you and Colin nailed it on this last episode that you did, or special episode, whatever, where you guys talked about it's the aspects of it. When you're playing the game, you're not just playing the game. You're sitting there talking, you're getting excited, you're talking about this story and that, and do you remember that scene in this book or in that book or whatever, and that gets you encouraged, and then your mind is thinking about the hobby and thinking about painting and all that stuff. So when you sit down, you're like, oh, that was so much fun when I was playing with him and I was talking about that. You know what? I'm going to go finish that model, or I really want to get this on. I think for me, I think that's the majority of people.
Because there have been people that have knocked out like armies, and they're like, "This is my second army I painted during COVID," and I'm like,
in the first 2 months, and then that kind of seemed like it died off. Everybody was hobbying for that first.
We all thought
everybody dived in, and
it's a dream come true.
Oh yeah,
you know?
Yeah, and I think because everybody thought it was going to be short term.
Yeah,
and so everybody was like, "I'm going to get these armies done and get out."
As it dragged on,
and as it dragged on,
that's a good point, Caleb. We thought it was going to be short term. I'll get these done and then I'll play. And then it just kept going. And you're like, am I ever going to play?
Yeah.
I mean,
obviously we are, but that there's like probably that thing in the back, the subconscious that,
and I think
that's a good point.
That community thing with getting together and playing. We talk about training and getting back into training, doing it online, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Part of what we do, and we were talking about this, is getting to go out and travel and be embedded in the community.
Yeah.
Because it's that personal interaction that you can't recapture online. So online has never filled that niche for you and I, and it's such a big part of why we do what we do, because we enjoy the community so much.
Yeah.
And when we teach a class, like we have one coming up in Sacramento in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We're in a game castle and teaching another class in a couple of weeks.
It's awesome.
That community that we're pulling together is the people that feel comfortable and are vaccinated and coming from Reno, Oakland, Sacramento, all this. We're pulling a community together again.
Right.
Like we used to love to do. And when they come in, they bring their stories with them.
Are you guys finding like a hunger for that? Like, because it's kind of like pent up, I think.
Let me tell you this. We sold that class out plus 2 extra seats, if this gives you an idea of how the want to get together out there is. The need to get back together is out there. That class we've tried to sell in Sacramento, which is local to me.
Previously,
Reno is local to Caleb.
Yeah, and for those people who aren't aware, like Sacramento to Reno's fairly short, like
2.5 hours.
Yeah, a couple hour drive. So I mean, we're not talking huge distance.
No, Caleb and I are really close.
By
to
the
each
way,
other
beautiful drive.
Isn't it lovely?
Yeah.
He rode his motorcycle down yesterday. It was awesome.
Nice.
But that community element and getting all those people together. Well, if they're coming from different areas, they're bringing their community with them.
Right.
No one has community to bring with them right now.
Right.
Stories of community. So it was interesting. We did one in Reno, and I noticed that we didn't have the element of people engaged in talking with each other again.
That's an interesting point, because they're not saying, "Oh, we've been doing this" or "We've been doing that."
They can talk about what they've seen online. Right now, it'd probably be a talk about online Warhammer Fest.
Yeah.
The conversation's different.
Or what vaccine did you get?
Exactly.
It's like that guy's video.
Or no conversation.
Which one did you get? I got the Pfizer. Oh, I got the Moderna. Oh, that's weird. You got the Moderna because I got the Pfizer. It's like,
Exactly. So we're going to see this as we keep doing more classes and things
and it opens
come
up.
online.
Yeah.
We're going to start seeing how the bigger evolution of the community starts going and people getting back together. And that's exciting to me. For me personally, with the art side of it, because I'm an artist, I started doing every other art during pandemic, allowed me to do other stuff. And so I haven't actually painted any miniatures.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of other art.
Interesting.
And I spent a lot of time on the river.
Oh, nice.
In the lakes. Oh, I paddleboarded for like 4 months. Like, okay.
It's a good break though, right? Do you think that's helped you guys come back? You guys also dirt bike.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Both of you do. And have you guys been able to do that together at all, or
not together?
Not too much together.
But just kind of off doing your own things.
Yeah, I've been doing quite a bit.
He's been doing a lot. He's got my bike at his house right now.
Yeah, I've been out riding like every weekend. Went and
has
did a couple more races and
break like helped you re-energize towards going back to doing training and classes? And
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, man, I keep thinking back while we're having this conversation. I keep seeing all these things about people ask about how to reinvigorate their hobby.
Yeah.
When they're tired of painting and they don't want to paint anymore, and everybody talks about cleaning the mechanism and doing this and doing that. And the more that we talk about this, the more, just the wheels are kind of turning. I'm thinking about it is, you know, when I first got in this hobby, it was just to paint, to relax. My passion hobby was racing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was racing a lot. I think a lot of people that met me, like at my first Adepticon, I had a cast on and everything because I had busted my wrist in a big crash and all this stuff. And I was passionate for the hobby because it was just that relaxation, that.
Yeah.
But as we developed, as CK Studio developed, it still stayed my hobby, but it was kind of more of a job of work when you commission paint. You know, Colin talked about the burnout of painting other people's stuff all the time.
I find as soon as you slap a deadline on something, it ceases to be fun and starts to be like a job.
It is a job.
Yeah.
For me. That's for me.
I think that's everybody. I think that's everybody.
I mean, they say like, you know, do what you love and you won't work a day in your life, right? But I can love podcasting, but then when it's like, oh, by the way, this Sunday you need to produce a podcast, and I'm like, oh, God, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's been more of a don't do what you love because you're not going to love it anymore.
That's been my experience. And I've said this before because people have been like, oh, well, what if you could do a podcast for Games Workshop? I'm like, oh, I don't think I'd want to do that. I don't think, and then, well, why not? You know? Well, first off, doing it for somebody else is suddenly something different, and on top of that, money notwithstanding, you know, the differences in pay wouldn't. Let's assume that's off the table. Now it's not mine, and it's also I have a job and I have to do this. And as soon as you say I have to do something, well, I don't want to do it. I think that might be human nature to a degree, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Don't tell me what to do. I don't want to do that.
And that's been a background conversation for us since we started CK Studios together. And it was as soon as this is no longer something we're doing because we want to be out there in the community and becomes a job,
right?
We're done.
Right. Because that's how it was with the podcast, right? As soon as it's not fun.
Yeah. We're not doing it to make an income.
Yeah.
This isn't something we're living off of. And
granted, you do make some money off of it,
we
right?
make a little bit of money off of it.
The
we're not,
Patreon was making me some money, but at a certain point you go, okay, but
that's not
really,
even
that's not what
payment.
That's not what I got into this for.
Exactly.
I didn't get into it.
This is not life altering money coming in.
Right.
You know,
But I would say the experiences have been life altering.
Absolutely, and that's what kept us going. And we established that idea. Okay, what is our purpose here?
Right.
Our purpose is this, and when it's not doing that and feeding us as well as we're feeding other people,
right?
And we're just working it because we sold classes and we have to now. I don't want to be there.
I think if you think of it like a relationship, right? In the sense that like if you're the one that's always giving, you're going to get exhausted, but if you're getting back, it re-energizes you. It's the same thing.
Yeah. And it's nice because Caleb and I have always had the same idea. We've always had the same vision. Yeah. And we get along.
Yeah. That's let me tell you, as somebody who previously had a partner for the podcast, has had people involved in podcasts that I don't get along with any longer, or we had different visions of what things were going. Once Jeff left, I was like, I'm not interested in another partner. It is my podcast because it's hard. It's hard to find. You guys are lucky to have found each other and have the same vision. Jeff and I were lucky to be on the same page. And when Jeff wasn't anymore, when he wasn't really playing 40K anymore, and he was more interested in going to board games, there was a point where he said, hey, maybe we should open up the podcast. I'm like, no, because that's not what the audience came for. I don't, and I'm not a big board. I've become a little bit more of a big board gamer, but for me, it was like, no, that changes my vision. So when they left, I was like, it's mine. Everybody else is a guest host. Now there may be more permanent guest hosts than not, but what I say is goes. And if you don't like it, well, that's okay. You don't have to be a part of it. It's cool. Do your own podcast.
Exactly.
Do Lords and Heroes. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding, Justin.
Poor Adon.
And Adon. I'm excited they did it. And I'll be honest, I never thought, I was like, they'll get a couple episodes out. No, Don's really stuck with it. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's Adon,
cool.
though. Adon
yeah,
is
Don's tenacious.
Yeah, put him on a path. And
it's like a pit bull.
He is. He is.
Boy, he's not even here and we're teasing poor Adon.
No,
I love that guy.
We miss Adon. We haven't seen Adon in too long. Too long. That's crazy.
So okay. So yeah, I totally see where you're saying like coming back to it is probably a little stressful for you, but also it's exciting now.
It's exciting.
And I think once you kind of do it, once you do that first class, it'll really open the door. I was not particularly excited about playing 40K. I got 2 games in and I'm like, okay, who else wants to play?
Exactly.
Like I'm ready. And the interesting thing is right after that, speaking that whole cyclical nature, right after that, it was, I'm going to get all these sisters assembled. And then I started talking to Caleb about, okay, Caleb, I want to do red. This is what I'm thinking. He's like, well, that won't really work as well as you think. Try this, do that. I'm like, okay. So now I've got like my recipe down for how I'm going to give it a go. And I'm like already, I've been reorganizing the Astronomicon a bit to, okay, I'm going to get my airbrush set up over here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Things are starting to gel, and I can already feel like the cycle starting up again, which is really interesting. That it just like, it's like, as they say, it's like riding a bike.
Yep.
You get back into it, and all of a sudden you're, I'm reading more 40K stuff right now. I'm like, oh yeah, this is,
that's so cool.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting how, just when you think you're out, they pull you back in.
And you're in further again.
Yeah, and you're just like, oh yeah. Oh, that's right. I do enjoy this,
Exactly.
You made that comment on the last episode about how you kind of looked at all the stuff that you had here, all the models and all that stuff, and you were like, man, do I really need all this stuff? How much am I into this?
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. I was sitting in my studio and I'm looking at, I don't even know.
Yeah.
You're just looking at everything.
I've been seeing you purge some stuff online.
Yeah. And I had to catch myself on it because I almost got rid of some stuff that
you would have regretted.
That I would have regretted because, I wasn't in the hobby. The COVID, everything going on took me out of the hobby. Honestly, it took me out. I started not really spending any time in the studio. I'm not looking at the models in the cases. I'm not looking at any of that stuff. I put a bunch of stuff up, get things out of the way so you can work, so you can do this, so you can do that. And, that was dangerous.
Right. I there was a point where I was like, maybe it's time to get out of 40K. And Doug and I, my friend Doug and I talked about this a bit. And Doug, they do a show, the Oldest Hell Gamers and Geeks podcast. He and Travis are doing it. And Doug did this whole episode on, and I think I talked about this last episode about falling out of love with the hobby, and he's concerned because it's always been a part of it, and and I kept telling him, I think once things loosen up, don't make any decisions. I said this about Shell, she wanted to quit being a teacher. I'm like, get back in the classroom with the kids, then decide. If you don't want to be a teacher, then decide, but get back to where you were, and you can make that. Don't make it under these conditions.
Right.
And I had to catch myself too, I am still considering selling off my 30K word bearers because I'm like, I'm just not playing 30K. 40K is really where it's at for me. That's like my sweet spot. But beyond that, like I bought all new cases. I set everything up, and pulling everything. Like I had to pull out every model I had. They were on the game table. They were on every shelf I had. They were on the pool table. Get rid of the old cases, build the new ones, and then dust off every model and then put them all back individually. I mean, that was hours and hours of work, but it also I was like, oh yeah, this guy's cool. I remember this guy's cool. One. And that guy's, this is a pretty interesting one. I don't think I'm going to play these guys again, but they look cool here. I'm going to, there is a falling back in love event that is occurring.
And I think everybody's going to start seeing this.
Yeah.
Especially now that you can finally get out and play and see the community, see your local gaming community and get in and play.
And when it fell off last year, we had just done LVO, and like 2 weeks after Northern California shut down. So it started with San Francisco, and we couldn't fly anywhere. We had already sold out almost a year's worth of classes.
I remember.
And we've had just a couple of folks that have reached out to us and said, hey, do you think you're going to be still throwing that class? If not, are you going to be doing refunds, whatever? The majority of people are just waiting.
Oh, really?
So, and we have got a lot of people signed up for classes in Europe over here, and all of them are just waiting.
Interesting.
And the couple of folks that actually asked for it, it's like, I'm moving, I'm not going to be there anymore when you guys do get to come to town.
Right.
Or do you think you're going to have a class where I'm moving to?
It's like the Kickstarter automatic litter box that I ordered that I ended up, like, the company, it's never going to deliver.
It won't.
But people are posting, they're like, my cat's dead. I don't need the litter box anymore.
Exactly. And
can I get a refund? I hate to tell you this. It's Kickstarter. You're not getting a refund.
Yeah, it's done. Sorry about your cat. I think we're not in Dead Catville yet. We haven't quite hit that yet, but we are so excited because we look at that and we've got all of these places and classes already lined up. So we have decided to kind of tip forward into local, where we've not done much in Reno and we haven't done much in Sacramento. Oddly enough, local to us meant we couldn't sell any classes there for whatever reason.
Right.
And now we offered it out, and it's just one day, just to see where the community's at. See if people are going to respond, see how we can get back into the groove teaching.
Getting.
And we don't have to travel for it.
That first class was so nerve-wracking.
Oh, you were nervous?
Just because you haven't done it in a year. I was like, man, I'm nervous about it.
But then you probably just fell right into it.
Oh,
I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Once it started back up, it started rolling really good.
It only took about, I don't know, a couple hours for you to get back into your head on it. And it was fun. It was different. Nobody was talking during that class like normal. But it was just a one-day class. We didn't have the breaks and the lunches together. And
anyway, interruption at the front door. one of the joys of podcasting. I forgot kind of where we were at that moment, Kat, but I wanted to actually move on a little bit because Caleb's getting worked up that we're not finishing thoughts here.
We haven't been this is that community thing. We all want to talk at once. We haven't seen each other forever.
You were talking about you're going to do some painting of an army of cats, and you're going to do some online stuff. First off, what's the army you're painting?
It's still my Death Guard I've been working on for 3-4 years.
Death Guard. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got it all built and never painted it.
So when you say working on for 3 or 4 years,
building it.
Been thinking about it.
Well, she's got quite a few painted pieces. They've all been example models from classes.
Yeah.
But
Okay. And I've got a bunch of, plague. The Plague Marines are all painted by different students that donated them back to me after class. They're all different. They're all individual. They're so cool. They're so cool. That's all I have painted.
Yeah.
So what is it you're thinking of doing here? Because and why? Like why? Other than Cat needs it painted, but
I want to play.
Yeah, I want to get the army done so that Cat's playing.
Okay.
Now's the time, and kind of we're talking about where the hobby's going to go, and I think Crusade and things like that are really going to take off locally.
I want to do that so much.
When all of this stuff ends, right?
Yeah.
When we get back to normal and stuff like that. So I'd like to have that done for. Well, in the meantime, we've been doing quite a few of like the Plague Burst Crawler classes stuff like that. So we got a couple of the plague burst crawlers. We did the video for Nights of the Game Table.
Yep.
And we got a plague burst crawler video on there, and a lot of people have asked, like, man, I'd like to see more. I've always had that issue about the online stuff, like Kat talked about. When I'm teaching, I really like that
one-on-one. You walk around a lot. You're you'll look over the person's shoulder and then be like, okay, try this and see here. Yeah. It's hard to capture that experience in video.
Yeah, and so it makes the classes not as fun for me to teach.
Yeah.
When I'm just teaching to a camera, it's just not very enjoyable.
It becomes a job.
It becomes that job. You're doing it because you have to. But, man, we get so many people that have been asking, like, show some stuff.
Can I throw out an idea? One thing that could be interesting is, rather than you just teaching to the camera, but what if you had somebody there you were teaching? Because you know how, like, in science fiction movies, they always have the person who doesn't understand what the hell's going on. So they can ask the questions of, well, why are you doing this? Oh, because the nuclear reactor is going to explode, right? We have to drain this so that this doesn't happen. And if they have, like, if you were teaching somebody, that would be an interesting perspective, because you'd have somebody being taught while you're also kind of going along with them on the process. That offers some different perspective. You see what I'm saying?
I like that idea.
Should we erase this part so you can
erase this? Nobody.
But I mean, that way you are engaged as well,
right?
And I think that comes through too. Mm-hmm. If I'm not excited about recording this show, you'll know. Mm-hmm. If I'm not excited, if I'm dungeon mastering a D&D game and I'm not excited about running it, every player at the table is going to be like, well, why should we be excited about it? But if you're showing a student, here, join me, and here, we're going to paint this thing together, and I'm going to show you this, and okay, try this, try that. And then you can also go back and edit the video to the point where you're like, maybe it took somebody a long time to grasp something, or they made mistakes. And sometimes I think seeing the mistakes people make and how you correct them is actually more valuable than showing them how to teach the thing.
That's the magic of our classes, right? I mean, like you said, anybody can watch people paint on a video.
Yes.
But you don't get the correction of your mistakes. So when you're watching a video and you're using the same colors, you're using the same brush,
but it's not coming out the same.
You don't get the same result because you're not being corrected with your mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that's where I feel the value of our in-person classes are.
For sure.
And that's always kind of stopped me from wanting to do the online. I've tried a few times. You guys remember the workshop Wednesdays we did and stuff like that. It's fun to kind of show the techniques, but I'm
not sure how you would film that. It would probably require multiple cameras for angles, but it would be interesting. And then maybe even do some split screen stuff where you're showing like you, but it would be interesting because, and I'm not saying have like another painter, like you're showing Justin how to paint, so like that would be pointless, right? But you're actually showing a student that. Honestly, there's some value in that.
We need to look at that. I like that idea. That sounds very fun.
Full of ideas. Nobody ever.
He's the idea guy.
But yeah, that's why I'm going to do this online with the Army. One, it's to finish up the Army for Cat. It's going to show some techniques. It's going to get some more videos out there. It's going to get my feet wet so that I'm a little more encouraged to do more video. Because really and truly, the only thing that's stopping CK Studios from having online content is I've been the one that
you're not super excited about it.
Yeah, I'm not excited about it.
I think that's
fair.
Just
not really.
And the thing is, it's just like, and I keep equating this to a podcast, but just like this, when people come to me and they're like, I want to do a podcast, and I'm like, what are you going to do differently than everybody else is doing? Right?
What's your vision?
Why there are 1,000 paint videos out there. When I painted my ultramarines, I looked at 20 different ways to paint ultramarines, and then I took pieces from the various things I liked and gave that a go. As I go to paint my sisters, I'm probably going to watch a few videos and see, okay, how this guy approached it, how that guy approached it. Oh, I didn't think about that. How are you differentiating from those others is very important.
Yeah. And that's the big question.
Yeah.
Right?
So why would you put out I'm going to paint this tank? There's 100 videos of people painting text.
There's 100 videos of it. Yeah. That's always been my resistance.
Which is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's back when I was initially learning how to paint, like, that wasn't something you could do. Mm-hmm. And now it's so helpful. But it's like, but in order to provide value, right, doing the same thing other people are doing isn't going to provide any value.
And that's been a lot of what we wore about. Well, I wore about personally.
I think it's a reason
why I want to do the videos. But there is that need. There's a lot of places that we're just not going to get to at CK Studios.
Yeah.
There's going to be areas, countries, stuff like that. And we do get asked a lot to do videos and stuff like that. So I'm kind of working my way into that slowly. And I'm hoping in the future that does open up into maybe personal video coaching or eventually some Zoom style classes. I mean, that's the one great thing that's come about with COVID is people have figured out how to do Zoom or
at least do it well.
Any of those online.
I keep telling people, could you imagine if we had to do this back when it was all just voice conference bridges? And like Zoom offers a huge advantage to that. Mm-hmm. All these video conferencing things. I like Zoom because it's just easy to use. It's
If we can capture the community aspect of it for teaching online classes, and that's part of it. It really kind of deviates away from our vision for CK Studios to go online. And that's another thing, because there's no motivation there to do it. It's not, because we're not doing it for money. And you don't want to undercut the market and hurt the guys out there that are doing it for money. Mm-hmm. So we can't just go out and do it for free because we miss everybody and want to see everybody online. I don't know. It's been very interesting. We've had a lot of conversations around it because it's not doing the parts of it that we're there to do, mm-hmm. which is be in the room with everybody.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping it's going to find something a little different that we do fit well into and that I enjoy doing. And that's why I just want to explore. I want to explore the options. There's going to be a lot of exploring.
Capture the community part of it while we're teaching. That would be the difference marker, because I don't see anybody doing that. I mean, you can go online, do Twitch. You can have a community element to that because people are just watching and communicating. There's only so much of how embedded you can be in that.
But what's interesting is we were discussing this earlier, Kat, before we were recording, we were talking about the heyday of sci-fi and fantasy and all this. And we were talking about how the younger generations engage with technology and that kind of thing. I will tell you, my 19-year-old is like their social engagement is online. They have friends that come and visit, and I'll be like, "Are you and Kat and Georgia going to go out and do something?" I don't know. And I'm like, "Well, how do you not know? You're constantly in contact with them." Well, we might not. I'm like, man, as when I was that age, It was like, get me out of the house. I'm going to go off with friends and do stuff. Now
it's go to the beach.
Yeah, now they're just online.
Yeah,
and that's if you take away their phone. You might as well just kill them.
When we hit COVID and Caleb and I really saw it and we were like, okay, we're not going to be able to do anything now. I literally went offline.
Yeah.
I dropped everything, but I dropped my phone. I dropped everything. I just went offline. It was one of those moments where I was like, okay, at my age, which we don't need to reveal, but it's enough time.
32.
32, thank you. Yeah, it's enough time to look at it and go, when will I have this opportunity in my life again?
Right.
To just
disconnect,
stop and reset life.
I think a lot of things are going to change.
Yeah.
Right. As a result of this, and as a result of people reevaluating things, we're talking about at my work about what does return to work even look like? Right. And how do you think this is going to impact gaming in general? Like we've been talking about Adepticon 2022 coming out. We're all very excited to go. I'm pulling out all the stops for it. How do you think that environment is going to be different?
I think it's going to magnify everything initially like crazy, because I think that it's not just those of us in the industry that enjoy and play, that serve the industry. You've got everybody in the world who's been shut off.
Yeah.
And that experience for people to come together physically again, I think is going to, and there was enough interest in a broader growing market before COVID. I think it's going to allow people an opportunity to come together more. What's funner than having a board game night?
Sure.
We just sat here last night and played a bunch of games because it was just we were together. We could. I think we're going to see more of that. I'm hoping we see more of that so that it builds out the greater like gaming market itself, that community. I think we're going to see a lot more activity. I don't think we're going to see less.
What about you?
No, I agree. I think you're going to see a lot more activity. I think we got a lot of new, industry-wise, right? I think we got a lot of new interest in the hobby. People couldn't go out and do the things that they normally do.
Dungeons and Dragons is seeing like a huge, because you could play it online, right?
Right. And you know, a lot of people that heard about the game, ordered up some models online to get sent to their house to sit and paint because they were stuck at home.
Right.
They couldn't do anything else. They're going to want to go play with those models now.
Hopefully. Yeah.
So, I'm really looking forward to a resurgence of, especially with the new, what is the new game system for GW, the new play style? Crusade.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to Crusade because you remember like at the beginning of 6th, 7th, and 8th, you always had the slow grow leagues, you had the escalation leagues, you had all of those things. Now, GW made like an official system for it.
Yeah.
That you can almost role play your
That
armies.
I will tell you, by the way, they very much want to support. Like I know firsthand.
I want to do that.
They want to support that.
And
if even, you know, I've had discussions with folks there that, you know, hey, do you want to do things with it? And I'm like, I can't, like, I don't have time for this.
Right.
You know, and I am like, that to me seems like the way to play. Yeah, we'll talk. I think we'll maybe talk more about Crusade again in the future at some point. You know, on my podcast that I quit.
It's that job thing. Now you can do it for the fun of it.
Whenever.
Yeah, so, I think you're going to see a growth across the board.
But what impacts do you think it'll have on events like Adepticon? Like, because I got to tell you, like,
depends on how far away from COVID
the year before the last Adepticon. I left and I got con crud. Like I got sick. And it was at that point that I realized, oh, my flight home takes me through Minneapolis and I sat in an airport for 3 hours feeling miserable. And I got home and I felt miserable. I got on a plane and I was ill. And so now like I'm much more sensitive and cognizant of, I'm going to be around a lot of people. Some of these people may be sick. Am I going to wear a mask? I'm vaccinated. So I feel fairly safe, but I also don't want to get anybody else sick. You know, am I going to shake hands with people? Am I going to bump elbows with people? Am I going to, you know, I after that event, I travel now. Every time I travel, I went and bought a first aid kit and I threw everything out of the first aid kit. And just so I had like a little red pouch. It's actually about the size of one of those like Games Workshop like Kill Team boxes, except it's red and it has like a red cross thing on it. And I filled it with all kinds of medication, all kinds of stuff, so that if I get sick, because I remember I was sick and I went down to the hotel desk and I was like, "Do you guys have anything I can buy?" And they're like, "No." And so I just laid in my bed, sore throat, miserable. And I'm just like, I'm never going to be in that situation again. So now whenever I travel, I have like this emergency kit. If I get sick, I'm covered. But it does concern me getting around a bunch of people again.
And I think that's going to be the impact on events coming up. I think what you'll have is there are probably going to be, before Adepticon, there's going to be a couple of events.
Yeah.
And
it'll be telling.
It'll be telling, right. I think what we'll see is whether or not everybody lives and survives the experience and they come away with it, 10 people got sick. Is that on your own, risk level?
Right. And everybody's going to have to make that decision
Am
for
I
themselves.
going to be okay being one of the 10 people? And no, they didn't get sick with COVID. They still got con crud.
Yes.
Which
we've always joked about.
Just accepted
and
that
joked
we're all
about
that sick.
And I think that's my point. Like we've always accepted, but now I'm going to be way more
I don't
cautious.
get that sick.
I used to tell people when I would get sick every time I travel, but now I would go in, I would carry hand sanitizer with me. I'd go through the x-ray machine. Those bins, everybody's touching those bins. As soon as I got my stuff done, I'd do my hands. I'd sit down in the airplane and I'd use a wipe and I'd wipe off the tray and everything. And I stopped getting sick. Like I would not get sick when I'd travel after that. And so I'm just going to be vigilant about it, I think.
Absolutely. And I know like Hank and Matt, the conversations we've had.
Oh, they're concerned about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so none of these folks that are, all the guys that we talk to that own the conventions, none of them can expose themselves that way.
No.
And so I think we'll see a response to that. And people are going to have to respect it also, because that's going to be another thing. What kind of rules are in place when we all get together again? And if you're not willing to follow the rules, because there's those folks.
And who's going to police that, right? Like, why put people in that position?
Why put people? But we're going to see that shift,
Yeah,
and then that'll go away.
I think so too.
That'll weed itself out because you're not going to survive.
I think over time things will,
and it'll be a new, but it'll be a new for a little bit, and then it'll go back to normal.
And we're seeing this now.
This will die down.
Yeah,
like Nevada's been open pretty
widely
for a while now.
Yeah,
we've already had a few smaller tournaments.
Yep.
And the first few tournaments, from what I heard, I haven't been to any of them, so I can't talk firsthand, but secondhand from what I've heard is at first a lot of the players were very nervous about that. They were very nervous about how they were going to interact.
Yeah.
How far do you stay apart, blah, 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 blah. And the more that they're happening, everybody's finding that equilibrium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had that with our first class.
Your
what do we do?
Anxiety goes down a little bit too. I was very anxious. Like I mentioned, I was very nervous, very anxious for the first class.
Mm-hmm.
Going through everything, second guessing everything. How many paints do I put out? How do I clean the paints? How do I
individualize everything that's been community shared? And
I think by the time we get to the bigger events next year, I think that people will have found their balance.
And I think that's what makes me comfortable with going to Adepticon, even though I am going to be careful. It's also March. Like, that's 11 months from now. We've canceled 2 Adepticons at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The problem we're running into in the U.S. is there's actually an abundance of vaccine now. Mm-hmm. The lack of demand has dropped because of misinformation and that kind of thing, and
folks just not doing it.
Yeah, and folks just not doing it. And so, and I'm not trying to preach. Like, look, to each their own. But I'll tell you, like, if you're not willing to get a vaccine, I'm not interested in hanging out with you, to be perfectly honest.
I can't.
Like,
I get this. I'm dead.
I'm totally comfortable saying that, because I got it, and my buddy Doug works. It's funny because Doug Neal, who's been on the show a couple times, he works and his wife have worked in the pharmaceutical industry for years, getting drugs approved for market, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember my boss or my CEO of my company at one point saying, well, I don't know if I'd be the first person in line to get the shot, but I'm going to get it. And Doug said, oh, I'd be the first person to get it. He goes, I'll tell you right now, your CEO is taking drugs that have gone through the exact same trials that this has gone through. And this is just how it works. And it works like this. And he goes, yeah, I'll take the first shot. Doesn't bother me a bit. And I'm like, and when I heard him say that, I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, I guess, that makes sense,
And what I don't get, how many people go to the doctor, you get put on a medication and you don't question it, you just take it.
Right. Because you feel it's been tested enough.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's no different.
Anyway.
I
I could go on about this forever, and I really don't want to. But
I do think vaccines are important in our industry.
It is.
Because we play community style. And I think there's got to be that element of, I don't know how you enmesh this into community play, but how do you fill out everybody's kind of their comfort zones?
Right. And it's going to be tough, especially.
We're going to have the conversations. We can't be afraid to talk about vaccines. We can't be afraid to talk about this virus being out there. We can't afford not to do it and go out and teach around people.
You guys are exposing yourself to a lot of folks.
Exactly. And we need to make sure that we're creating an environment that does not end in someone dying.
Yeah.
Which scares me so much.
Yeah, sure.
And that's the same thing with going to a convention.
I don't want to be responsible for that.
You don't. You don't. And I think we'll see, no one wants to be responsible for that. Yeah. And we'll see that will play into it. And it's going to become just that new normal. But I think we really need to be okay with the idea of talking. You're not preaching. You're having a very important conversation.
Yeah. Fortunately or unfortunately, I have a platform in which I feel, this is how I feel.
I personally, with my going into it, my medical history, I could very likely die if I get this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about it for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm asking, are you vaccinated? I walked into your house, first thing Shell did, are you vaccinated?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just drove 2 hours, and I know for a fact if I'd said no, she would have said, okay, come back.
Yeah.
Like literally, and it would have been understandable.
Yeah, we're only having people here.
Yeah. And I think it's important to have that conversation.
Yeah. For your own comfort level, right? And you have to make that decision. Anyway.
And it's going to be important to respect other people's comfort levels when you go there. So there are going to be rules in place. You're going to go to Adepticon and they're going to have rules. You're going to have to do this. You're going to have to do that. You're going to have to do that. Respect those. If you want,
and don't put people in a position where they have to suddenly enforce it. That's the thing that
we don't need.
Does Hank want to have to go up to somebody and be like, "You didn't use the hand, please use it." Just freaking do it so we can all get together and have fun. That's all I care about. Yeah. So
I think it's going to be exciting. I'm so looking forward to it.
You're so ready.
I'm so ready.
You've been ready since like March of last year, though.
Oh my God! Like I've said it multiple times, it is better than my Christmas. It truly is. And so Christmas has been canceled 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
it freaking sucks. I am looking forward to I hang out with so many people there that I've become tight with. That's like the once or twice a year that I get to see them. Dave Taylor, all the guys. Ian from Minnesota. Austin moved out of the area back to Minnesota, so he's with Ian. Eric Beers, like all those guys, like we've become such good friends. I have friends in Australia that, Shell and I were going to go to Australia, and the interesting thing is, these are people we've met effectively online, and then we've conversed as a result of the podcast, and I've become friends with, to the point where they're like, "You need to come out here, and we'll put you up in our house, and then we'll take you to this winery, and we'll go do this." And, we got one guy who's a boat captain. He's like, "Come out, we'll take you out on the boat." I'm like, oh my God, can everybody please get vaccinated so we can come out and do this? Right. And I'm like, are you guys going to come to Adepticon? I know it's a long trip, but you guys should come out to Adepticon, and I'd love I miss it.
Oh God.
So much. I miss it desperately.
Yep.
Like I honestly, I'll play just a few games here and there, I think, but for the most part, I just want to hang out and talk. And
that's what we miss so much about our classes. We were traveling together. We were traveling once a month, and if we have the opportunity, we stay with students. Yeah. And we go.
Oh yeah. You guys
every time we experience the cities we go to, and there's a lot of where do we want to travel to this year? Let's map that out and put classes on there.
Yeah.
And we look at what time of year to travel, all of that.
Because
there's a community everywhere we want to go. And the students, it's that, let's experience this together. They want to share their areas. They want to show us what they do. And we've had these conversations building up to it for months since we decided to stay with them. I miss all of that.
It's interesting you said, because like every time I would go travel, whether I go to Dublin or Belfast or whatever, I always pop into like a games workshop or a local game store just to see like, so how's this different from where I am, and what are these guys doing? And and I'd chat with people and just be like, so tell me a little bit about what you guys do here and what's your hobby and how's that working out. And it didn't really occur to me that's exactly what you're doing. I just happen to, I don't pick the location I want to go to and then check it out. I like find myself there because of work, and then I'm like, so where's the nearest game store? So let me take a look, and then I'll pop by them and check it out.
We do a lot of
Dublin had some freaking awesome game stores in it too, by the way.
Oh, well, and going all over England, of course. GW's like on every other corner.
Yeah, and I'm going to jump topics here again, but what's super cool is, and I said this before, the first time I went to Warhammer World, like I heard all this, it was a different entrance at the time. They changed the way it's worked now. But I heard like all this noise going on upstairs, and I was like, what's going on up there? And then I went up there, and it was different schools. The kids from the different schools were there playing in a tournament. Like that's how it is in England. Like the younger generation is playing this game, a lot, to the point where there's school clubs that go and then compete at tournaments. And they were all wearing their school uniforms and stuff. Aww. And I was like, this is awesome.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was super cool. So I love that stuff.
That'd be fun.
My favorite part with traveling and staying with students is seeing the hobby spaces.
Oh yeah, I'll bet.
Oh, you do. You nerd out. You nerd out.
Yeah, it's so much fun. See, especially I love going to the old.
Like
old
what's some of the cool ones you've seen?
Oh my goodness, my favorite.
Yeah,
I mean,
other than
the Astronomicon is
okay.
Forget it. My second favorite, and he sold his place.
We haven't seen the new one yet.
I haven't seen the new one, so. Beer and Bolters, Adam from Beer and Bolters.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows him online as Russ Man.
Yeah.
He had this basement. Oh,
that was the first place we did in.
Yeah, that was my first class.
I remember you talking about that.
Amazing hobby space, like by far my favorite. There's been a few of them that we go to where the guys have been in the hobby since like Rogue Trader.
So they have like all this old stuff.
Yeah, getting to see some of the old stuff. Like I was over there last night looking at all your old D&D.
Yeah.
And there's like some really old Forgotten Realms books in there and everything. I'm like, dude, this is from like 1987, 88. When you go into those hobby spaces.
The white box D&D set.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah, getting to go in and see some of those. That's way cool. Goodness sakes.
So what was cool about the Beer and Bolters one?
What wasn't cool about it?
Yeah.
Well, he's a big cross-genre nerd.
Okay.
Like, he's got a ton. He was doing another podcast that was just kind of like nerd hobby in general.
Okay.
Or geek hobby. I don't want to stereotype it or whatever. But, a lot of Superman, Batman, Marvel, stuff like that. So, in the one main area, you go down into like this basement. It's this all finished basement. It's all sections. It's not just like one big basement. Wow. It was like, you had to go through kind of rooms almost. And in the one room, it's got a big couch. And on top of the TV is Marty McFly and his DeLorean and,
nice.
all the stuff. And then you go into his hobby area and it's just, every paint. It's all set up really nice lights. Just
wow.
The guy's in law enforcement also. So you know how meticulous those guys tend to be. So he was very particular, very meticulous with the stuff. But then you go into his main hobby room and he's got a table that's probably, it's about the 4 foot wide so you could play across it, but it's 12 feet long.
Wow.
And it's got the extended sides. It's all custom built, really gorgeous wood and everything like that with just fantastically painted terrain. And one of my favorite things about the hobby is getting immersed into your games.
Yeah.
And when you got good terrain, you got good painted armies, stuff like that, you like.
But he sold this place, huh?
He sold that place. He bought a new place that apparently he can host like a 40-person tournament in his new place.
That's huge.
He runs a group. If you guys are lucky enough to live out in the Maryland area, you need to look him up because he runs a gaming group and they have tournaments. They have game days where everybody comes over for the game. They have multiple games going on. They'll play campaign systems. I mean, everything. Just imagine that he almost like runs his own hobby group.
That's awesome.
Club.
He has us come out and do training.
Yeah.
Once or twice a year.
That's really cool.
But that basement was just so nice. And it's like this here where a lot of the artwork is up on the walls and everything just inspires you.
Cabinets and
everywhere you look around is just 40K, the hobby that encourage you to, I want to play.
That's
I
awesome.
want to get in. I want to play. I want to paint. I want to, do all that stuff. So that one's probably been like kind of a Shangri-La of hobby spaces.
And honestly, I think Adam, more than anybody I've ever met, loves this hobby.
Oh.
Like, loves the game, loves the hobby, there are so many passionate people in it. He's probably
at the top.
That.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet.
Nice.
Such a cool dude. Yeah. That one was fun. But I think going around, and it's not just when you get to travel and you get to stay with your students and do that, they also introduce you to their community. And so it kind of, that allows them, what we tend to see is people invite more people in for the moment. And every time we do that, it's a way for them to grow their community, grow their community.
Sure.
And so we go back to visit to teach another class there, and the community's gotten bigger.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to that. And I think we'll see a lot more people just like trying to sell a class in SAC right now or Reno, and everybody's coming out of the woodwork. If they can travel and get there and they're vaccinated, they're coming.
That's cool.
They're just going to show up for the experience right now. It's going to be so much fun.
All right. Well, we got to wrap up. But I wanted to thank you guys for the stuff that you're doing for the Tablewar Charities.
Absolutely.
Event. And what's today? It's today the 6th? I think today's the 6th. Oh my gosh, is it this? It's the 8th. There's only 2 days left of it. Oh my gosh. I have some stuff to do at work. Darn it. Listen, there's only 2 days left. I'm going to try to release this. I want to release this evening, but I may not be able to. Hopefully I can. But go check it out at tablewar.com/charity. The link will be in the show notes. It's raising good money for a good cause, helping with autism advocacy for parents who have dealing with children that are facing difficulty through education. And it's a tremendous cause. I really appreciate you guys donating your time and effort to it. It's super helpful.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of great prizes up there that you can bid on, and some raffles too. So, okay, well, guys, thanks. I'm so glad you came down to visit. I had a blast last night.
So nice coming down.
Yeah, just hanging out was nice, and I'm so glad you guys came over this morning. Thanks for the breakfast burrito.
This was fun.
And we'll see you soon. And then when you're doing classes again, I'll probably come join. I need to refresh. Oh, one last thing before we move on. So I haven't turned on my airbrush compressor for a while. Is there anything I should know before I turn it on, or am I good? It should just start right.
Yours is tankless, so you're fine. Okay. If you are in the same situation as Carl and you haven't airbrushed for a while, if you do have a tank compressor, make sure that you drain that.
Okay.
Get all the water out of it and stuff before you fire it up. Other than that, you guys are going to be fine.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Mm-hmm. I probably got to clean up my airbrush a little bit. It's just sat there for a while. I mean, I put it away clean, but it hasn't I probably put some
time to dust those things off.
That's
and get
right.
into it.
That's right.
I'm excited.
All right. Well, guys, listen, I really appreciate you joining. I appreciate the time. And,
thanks for having us out, Carl.
We'll talk again soon. This episode of The Independent Characters is protected by the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find information on the front page at theindependentcharacters.com.